before we introduce her, last year, our next keynote speaker had a very exciting presentation that she gave called Get Shift Done. It was exciting. We all still are talking about it. So we're really excited for her to present to you again this year. So please allow me to introduce our Director of Innovation at Bidgely, Maria Kretzing, who will be starting with a video for you all to watch.
Let's talk about the cul-de-sac effect. Let's say the Jones family adopts an EV. Then to keep up with the Joneses, so does another, and another, and another, and down goes a transformer and the power is out. While the adoption of EVs is exciting, if electric companies don't adapt fast, they're going to be left in the dark. Bidgely's EV solution ensures that the EV revolution is one electric companies can manage. Our patented AI disaggregation technology uses meter data to identify who has an EV and when and how they charge it. Next, we swap out expensive mass marketing for Bidgely's high-touch, industry-leading CX platform, targeting EV program participation through personalized messaging. Finally, Bidgely optimizes charging for millions of EVs through passive and active managed charging. With advanced grid analytics, utilities can strategically apply incentives at the time and location where the constraint exists, realizing meaningful grid gains at a fraction of the cost in one trusted turnkey solution. With Bidgely, electric companies can not only manage the grid, they can transform their customers into active energy partners that drive the clean energy revolution.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here again. Thank you for ETS for having me back. I do have a little bit of a different topic, maybe not as exciting as getting shift done, although we'll still touch on how to do that. My name's Maria Kretzing. I'm the Director of Innovation at Bidgely. And today I'm actually going to talk to you, if I can, oops. Sorry about that. I'm going to talk to you about the revolution we're undergoing, and specifically about the 5 pain points we'll begin to experience as we have this EV boom. So I like how Drew put it in the last session, better than saying EVs are undoubtedly mainstream, but yeah, it's over. We won. EVs are here. Yet we aren't without barriers or roadblocks to the adoption. So today I'm going to walk you through 5 pain points that exist and how utilities and this network of collaborators can work together to overcome those. So truth number 1, the potential is great. The headlines sometimes aren't. So, I just thought this was funny. I always am watching the news for energy-related things, especially EV-related, pieces. And you see both sides, anywhere from left, right, center, often have things to say about electric vehicles and utilities. And while we can say, oh, they're just blowing smoke, they don't understand the nuances of our industry. To be frank, occasionally they do hit something that is quite true in our industry. And that is that grid management will need to change drastically in response to this electric vehicle revolution. Why is that? So grid management so far, we've had supply that's relatively predictable and can be called upon on demand. So we've had coal, nuclear, gas, easy base load, easy coming up and down. When we do have high demand events, we can simply increase supply by either increasing coal or calling a demand response event to address that. Now, what is happening that's going to change this? We're now seeing renewables, wind, solar, and we're reliant on the weather. It's no longer going to be supply at our fingertips. This is going to alter how we can respond to changes in demand. At the same time, electric vehicles are growing at an explosive rate, which again, that's awesome for our industry. However, there's this sort of potential for unfortunate charging on peak if charging is not managed. What that would cause is unprecedented grid strain, where we see variable generation and at the same time, this increase of peak. How can we manage this? So one way, obviously, is through time of use rates. We also heard in the panel that that's been very successful. And I do think that's your number one starting point to manage this. However, there's the chance that we're just shifting all of this load to a new timer peak or a new, for example, say at midnight, all of the vehicles will charge and create a new peak. We no longer will be able to fire up resources unless we want to bear that carbon tax or impact. So what do? We think about how do we actually take these electric vehicles causing congestion and determine when they can move. Again, as the last panel noted, these electric vehicles are a huge opportunity because they can be scheduled to charge at any time throughout the day. Bidgely is able to use our patented disaggregation to detect those vehicles that are causing the issue and actually decide when they charge, move to the optimal charge points where we're actually getting the cleanest and cheapest energy for the utility. What's pain point number 2? You all, I'll say, you might think you know your customers, but how many of you know where every electric vehicle in your territory resides or is charging? And there's this history with electric customers. They're not necessarily that close with you. And so while you may expect that you'll quickly realize or they'll call in, you'll identify, the reality is that a lot of customers don't really connect that their electric vehicle is related to their electric utility. And that's something you need to change. There's this paradigm shift where the utility is becoming the new gas station. And in fact, they need to understand their customers in this context. So some examples of ways that I've seen utility try to do this, sometimes ineffectively, is using data sources suboptimally, like DMV data, or small samples of customers where they'll pull in car API data or telematics. The unfortunate thing is this lacks a lot of the granularity, pinpointing the exact customers and exact locations. What Bidgely can do is actually use your AMI data, these advanced meters you've already invested in order to help you understand where every electric vehicle is, who owns that electric vehicle, and how much they're charging at home. We do this through what we call disaggregation. Disaggregation is data science built upon smart meter data, where we can identify every end use in the home, specifically not just detect it, but also inform you to what extent at every hour that end use is using power. What this allows us to do is actually understand who we should be engaging from this perspective of electric vehicle ownership. We can go ahead and start that relationship for the utility off on the right foot and actually engage the customers in the right manner. So should they be on a specific rate plan, be that time of use or an innovative rate? Should they be in a program, for example, a managed charging program? And when we do this, when you think about how much it takes if you would recruit these customers through non-targeted ways, we're saving a great deal of money because you're actually just using your existing relationship to bring these customers into the programs that will benefit them. In other solutions and just relying on DMV data or self-selection, you're going to actually have quite the acquisition cost for these customers. And what that's going to do is drive up your program costs when you're thinking about your time of use deployment or your managed charging deployment. Even a charger rebate program, it's going to help to understand where your customers are. So at the end of the day, what does this mean? It means you have a way to reduce the cost per kilowatt, to reduce that cost to acquire that demand and balance the grid if you intelligently select the customers and the ways in which you engage them. Truth number 3. So I love this image. You can see it's a funny Rube Goldberg example where this guy's just trying to have some breakfast, but he came up with this chaotic system in order to do so. And this sort of gets across the point. You don't always need to make these systems, right, to do everything you think needs to be done. In fact, every system gets the exact result it was designed for. But sometimes we need to think, can we simplify systems? Can we think about what will really drive the outcomes we desire? So this truth is not every EV needs to or can be actively managed. And so now I'm going to talk about this thing called active managed charging, where we directly control the starting or stopping of a vehicle. With Bidgely's solution, we actually take a simpler manner where we do actively control certain vehicles. However, we aim to do that in the most optimal way. We want to engage all customers, and then we want to engage each customer in their desired preference, as well as the method that would meet the needs of both customer and utility. So we don't do this through a single approach of just everyone should be on active charging. We do this through a three-pronged approach. First, we detect where vehicles are. Second, we actually use existing mechanisms like time of use rates to engage customers, shift that load off peak. Finally, those customers where they really aren't showing the shift, we enroll them in the active managed charging, and this is where we do use incentives to move that load. So why is this important? Not all customers are the same. There's certain customers that are going to give you the most bang for your buck in terms of load shifting, and that's what we're really after in managing the grid, is moving that load at the optimal times. There's going to be other customers who aren't really going to actually be able to provide you any shift. So you see just two examples here. There's many examples. Group A really doesn't have any shift to provide, any response to provide. Group B has a significant amount. It's important not to treat these customers in the same way. So what we do is we have personalized communications and tailored incentives to each of these groups. Group A, who has nothing to provide, go ahead and treat them with engagement, leveraging time of use rates, or intrinsic motivation. Group B, this is where you want to apply the extra incentive dollars in order to get the load shift, so you can ultimately get the grid response on a whole to serve all of your customers. Here's what I like to show people. This is a graphical representation. If you think about those two categories, shift to be provided, no shift to be provided, we think about the customers who can provide something as these orange dots. Maybe that's not the best thing to think about customers as, but let's just think about, we want to target the highest value customers, and we want to engage them so that we can actually show substantial shift. If you don't target these customers for your programs, you're going to be left with a somewhat random arrangement in your program. You'll end up paying far more for every kilowatt or for that program. However, if you actually select the customers who can provide the most value, what you're going to do is drive up the value and cost effectiveness of your demand response program or active managed charging program. And that's why we believe it's so important to target customers and think about, what mechanism should I target for each customer? Truth number 4. Behavior change is hard. Even as we're talking about active managed charging, passive managed charging, it's not easy to change customer behavior, especially when they're not really looking to the utility for that trusted advisor type of instruction. We need to serve customers in an easy and simple manner where the ease of doing something far outweighs the discomfort. So with that in mind, we've built an easy and delightful solution where the customer is always put at the forefront and their needs are always put first, while also balancing the utility needs. So we go through onboarding to really establish the firm foundation with customers and explain not just the benefits of utility programs, but really what's in it for them. We have regular engagement, regular touch points to continually coach them to move forward. in their journey of electric vehicles, coach them about how they should be charging, how much money they could be saving, and even how much carbon reduction they're contributing to their community. Load shifting, so even with the time of use rate, you have this intrinsic motivation to shift. We notify them when they do charge on peak in order to get them to charge off peak. And then finally, we have the automated charging. So again, these are for those customers that you see it's really hard for them to change their behavior. It's important that we find a way, we make this simple for them, but we also sort of take the charging control out of their hands. We actually allow them to give us control and help them automate or schedule their charging so that we can always place it in the optimal time. So finally, truth number 5. This again is something the last panel hit on, but right now we're still in this phase throughout most of the country where we're in that early adopter range and we're now moving to the mass majority. But what we need to think about is it's not just folks who own EVs today that's important to engage as a utility. Everyone needs to be an evangelist, even if you're not going to purchase a vehicle this year. It's still crucial that we educate customers on the value of electric vehicles, the value it provides the community, the value it provides the environment. And so, I like this Oprah image. Everyone gets an EV. How can the utility bring everyone in, whether that's through those ride and drive events, educational programs, working with community organizations? How can we ensure no one's left behind in this revolution? And that's where, from the Bidgely perspective, we really believe in holistic engagement and education, no matter what point the customer is on this EV transition journey. So I'll leave you with this. I think every utility wants to deliver an amazing electric vehicle experience from the start to end, and they really want to think about the people, the customers themselves, which is admirable. There's also these barriers to overcome. So how do we do this? I think it's important to start simple. If you don't start simple and start soon, you're going to create a large barrier for yourself going forward. So our recommendation is think big, start small, and scale fast. For any tips on how to do this or program recommendations, feel free to come to me after. But with that, I'll pass it back. And just a reminder, come to me to learn how to get shift done. Thank you.